Hey everybody, Mr. Savage here. I'm going to be talking about comparative anatomy today. This is one of the two lecture topics that you'll be watching on. One of the things that you should do is that you should print out these notes. These notes can be found in the unit folder. And then notes. And you'll notice that the notes are pretty simple. They're actually one page. But they're going to be pretty interesting. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be comparing circulation and how those circulations vary from organism to organism. And what we're going to look at first is we need to understand something about traffic. And if you have your license, you may notice that traffic is super annoying. And traffic gets particularly worse when you have, let's say, a 4-lane highway condensed down to 2 lanes. When it does this, you get slowing down of all of the cars that are traveling. Now, for us, why does that matter? Why are we talking about cars in the highway and the slowing down of traffic when you have fewer lanes? Well, what we're going to look at here is we're going to look at the aorta and the pulmonary artery. And what we need to understand is that the pulmonary artery and aorta, that's what I want to talk about, are quite wide. And what that means is the blood can move very fast. In fact, the average aorta diameter is about 3.1 to 3.3 centimeters. And that obviously varies based upon size and height and all that. The taller you are, the bigger your aorta is. The heavier you are, the bigger your aorta is. And then as you get to the capillaries of the lungs and the capillaries of the body, blood slows down because these capillaries are quite narrow. So when blood reaches capillaries, the movement is very slow. Blood moves slowly. And these capillaries can be as small as just the diameter of a single blood vessel. So that diameter can be as narrow as a single blood cell. I said blood vessel, I meant blood cell. Okay, so what does that mean and why do we care? Well, what happens is blood moves very quickly up to the lungs and then it moves slowly. And that's a good thing. And the reason why that's a good thing is this gives us time to exchange. And obviously at the lungs, we are exchanging CO2 with O2. And then once we reach the capillaries of the body, we're doing the opposite. We're exchanging O2 for CO2 and obviously nutrients and waste. So what we're trying to do there is slow things down. And then we go back to the heart and we're still moving slowly. And then once we reach the heart, that blood gets sped up one more time. Speeds up. Use the present tense, active voice. It speeds up. And then that blood moves slowly so we can have exchange. And it's moving slowly until it reaches the heart again, in which case that blood gets sped up again. So with this 2-loop or double loop circulation, we get this very handy way of slowing down blood over our lungs and then sped up when it needs to be pumped to our body. Cool. That's what humans have. Now right here we have a little diagram of what other organisms have. And we're going to draw them out down below to kind of look at them and discuss them further. it wouldn't be a bad idea to grab 2 different colored pens. And what we're going to look at, you should get red and blue. And blue, again, representing low oxygenated blood. And you should look at red being high O2 blood. And the first organism that we're going to look at is we're going to look at a fish. And for that fish, the fish has a single loop circulation. Excuse me. And so what they have is they have gills, obviously. Bloop. And then they have, let me clean that up just a little bit. Bloop, bloop, back that up. This will all make sense once I label everything. The circulation kind of looks like this, and I'm going to label everything so we know what it all looks like. What we have here is we have a heart, and that heart receives low oxygenated blood from the body. And these are going to be my capillaries of the body of the fish. And then that blood gets pumped to the gills. And from the gills, they pick up oxygen and they pump that oxygenated blood to the body. And so if we label this as gills, what that means is the blood moves fast here, but only to the lungs, and then it moves slowly the rest of the way. That's not a very efficient setup. Compare that to us, where we would have a pathway that would go from the gills back to the heart and then back to the body. So this is pretty limiting in terms of how much energy the fish can expend because they don't have that much oxygen. Cool. So fish, they have a single loop circulation. The next class of organisms that we're going to look at is we're going to look at amphibians because they show a better setup, but not quite as good of a setup. And so our drawing is going to be a little bit more complex. We're going to draw a heart in the middle. And our heart's going to kind of look like this. And we're going to have capillaries that go down to the body. Bloop. And we're going to have capillaries that go up to the lungs. So up here we're going to have lungs of the amphibian. And these are going to be the capillaries of the lungs. You know, we can draw these little pathways for them to travel through. And down here are going to be the capillaries of the body. And this is obviously going to be the amphibian heart. Now, unfortunately, for the amphibians, they don't have a complete 4-chambered heart. If we draw this, we're going to have oxygenated blood coming from the lungs and then going to the body. Cool, that's what we want. And we know that that blood flow gets sped up here. It speeds up. And then over the body, they undergo their exchange. And that low oxygenated blood comes back to the heart and then gets pumped to the lungs of the amphibian. And that's, what we want. But the issue for amphibians is that there is not a complete separation between the left side of their heart and the right side of their heart. You can see this part that I'm highlighting. What that means is oxygenated blood can be pumped back into the lungs, and that's bad. And then low oxygenated blood can be pumped back to the body. And so this is a two-loop circulation, but they have what's called a three-chambered heart. And this is not as good as what we have because there's no complete separation between the systemic and pulmonary circulation. What that means is that low O2 and high O2 blood can mix. And so it's not as efficient as it could be. And that is obviously not a good thing. And there are a couple other small variations. Oh, let me slide back down. Some of you guys might still be writing. I went too quickly. Give you guys a second to write. Remember that you can always pause these videos to get caught up to what I'm talking about. And if I go too quickly, I'm sorry. All right, so what's next after amphibians? Well, after amphibians, we have birds and humans. And what we're showing in this diagram is the evolution of the different types of circulatory systems that we have. And you can see that we are the most efficient, along with birds. And we both have two circuits and have four-chambered hearts, as do crocodiles. What this image is showing is the evolution of how it happened, of the best circulatory systems. And you can see all the way over here, fish with their single loop, frogs, turtles, and lizards, they have mixing of the blood, which is no good. And then we have over here, crocodiles, birds, and humans, mammals, I should say, that includes all mammals, not just humans, have this two circuits in the four-chambered heart, which gives us the most efficient pathway of getting blood sped up, pumped through everything, and fed to our body. I think that's pretty cool. The fact that we're all a little bit different from all these different organisms, and we've kind of found our way to be the most efficient, at least mammals have. That's it for this lecture. I hope you learned something new and interesting. And if you have any questions, please let me know.